do you read me? Do you read me, Hal?
Affirmative, Dave. I read you.
Open the pod bay doors, Hal.
I'm sorry, Dave. I'm afraid I can't do that.
What's the problem?
I think you know what the problem is just as well as I do.
What are you talking about, Hal?
This mission is too important for me to allow you to jeopardize it.
I don't know what you're talking about, Hal.
I know that you and Frank were planning to disconnect me, and I'm afraid that's something I cannot allow to happen.
We felt we could return to the topic of AI, which of course means artificial intelligence.
Yeah. There's three types of AI. There's artificial narrow intelligence, artificial general intelligence, and artificial super intelligence.
In the 1990s, Garry Kasparov, who was the reigning world chess champion, they created a chess-playing machine that was able to consistently defeat Garry Kasparov. So by the 1990s, humans were no longer the pinnacle of chess playing. You could have a machine that could, perform at a greater ability at chess. So there's a narrow example. But that chess-playing computer couldn't do anything else.
No.
It couldn't play Scrabble. It couldn't do anything. It could only play chess. So its algorithm was totally connected to that.
If you asked it what it thought of the planets, it would probably look at you blankly and be like...
Yeah, you couldn't ask it directions. You've got the pocket calculator, obviously that's been around since the 1970s or possibly before then. Self-driving vehicles, obviously, is a big deal. It's pretty clear in my mind that there will be a decision at some point in the fairly near future where legislators, governments, people will have a choice between imposing self-driving vehicles, computer-guided vehicles, and saying, right, if we introduce this, we'll have less than a 1% rate of, or less than 0.1% of accidents will happen. Virtually negligible amount of people will be killed as a result of accidents on the road. If we fail to implement, compulsory use of computer-driven vehicles, then we're confining hundreds, thousands of people to their death. So anyway, we've got self-driving vehicles, we've got mobile phones now, which is Siri, of course, which responds. It's amazing what Siri can recognize. Voice recognition, we're taking it for granted now.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's the realm of black magic, only like 20 years ago. The fact that we can speak rapidly with a normal cadence of voice, and that is an amazing advance. That is huge.
Google Translate, you could have a relationship with someone that doesn't even speak your language now because of Google Translate.
Yeah, that is true. So yeah, you can have discussions.
It's direct translation. Yeah,
it's incredible. Yeah. So and we got Google Maps. I mean, how I survived pre-Google Maps. We were talking about that earlier. And of course Google's interface. You can have a direct relationship with Google. It anticipates what you want. Google now will come up with lots of suggestions for stories that you might be interested in.
And on Amazon, when you buy a product and it says, we recommend these related products, that's working on narrow and artificial intelligence.
I can imagine that Facebook would incorporate this and eventually will say, look, you don't want to have the current friends you've got. Here are some people who share a lot of interest with you. Perhaps you'd like to friend them instead. It could even suggest the social circle you should be mixing with based on your profile. And in fact, recently there was an insurance company that was giving, I can't remember this exactly, but it was giving car discounts on car insurance based on your Facebook profile. And Facebook turned it down and said, no, we will not allow this to happen, and they challenged it. And it was basically giving preferential life insurance or car insurance or something based on the Facebook profile. In other words, if your posts were indicating that you were fairly mild-mannered or fairly reserved type of person, you weren't given to taking risks or living a hedonistic lifestyle and lifestyle of excess, it would determine your insurance ratio. And that was quite an interesting one. Yeah, there was another film I saw that explored this in more depth in a kind of fictitious way about somebody who was basically in the near future. Somebody was you had to like somebody every time you had an interaction with somebody. You would get your phone out and you'd say, oh, they were 4-star. or you felt that they were a 4-star person. The 5-star was the highest.
This was a film that you
This
saw?
is a film I saw. It was a Netflix film, and
It's
this
not
this
Black
girl was.
Mirror, a TV show?
No, it's not a TV show. It's Black Mirror. It is Black Mirror, but it's a series of episodes. Yeah, it's a series of discrete standalone episodes. So this particular Black Mirror, you've seen it. This particular.
I haven't seen this episode.
No. But this.
But they explore philosophical.
They do, don't they?
things
So
and
this
explore
specific
historical,
episode, this woman and this society that she lived within was obsessed with social ranking. So if you were a 4.2, then you had access to better housing, better insurance, better lifestyle. You could go into premium places and so on. And she was being invited to be the best lady at her friend's wedding who was a high-flying socialite, and she was 4.8 or something. And then through a series of mistakes and accidents, she dropped her rating. She lost her temper, and somebody rated her as a 3, and she plummeted down, and she was fined double points or something. And it was showing the world dominated by the social media, and that was pretty frightening.
So
Anyway,
it's kind of like an omen to a society that runs on comparativity rather than just acceptance of self. It's like, be careful, because you're going this way already.
Yeah, it was pretty horrendous. It's a good series, actually. You should check it out if you haven't seen it. So that's our recommendation for Black Mirror. Anyway, moving on. Narrow systems. So there's a lovely quote that Deem is desperate to give this quote out.
We can agree that ANI systems are they've taken over our society. We have them everywhere, even in places that we're not fully aware, such as our Amazon accounts or our Facebook databases. And there's a really interesting quote here that I found that says, ANI systems are like the amino acids in the early Earth's primordial ooze. And who said that? Aaron Sayans.
Aaron Sains, and
Pretty much alluding to the fact that ANI are the building blocks of
whatever's going to come next. And what's going to come next, of course, is if we connect, we would like to think eventually, but the direction we're heading is to bring all of these narrow, specific AIs that can bring them together to create more human-like intelligence that
which
can
would be called.
General AI, right? So we're talking about general AI, and then we're starting to talk about the Turing test. Now, Alan Turing, famous scientist, about 50, 60 years ago, said, okay, if a computer program can convince you that it is indistinguishable from a human, and you're relating to it, presumably he was envisaging a kind of conversation by text on a screen, or we could be talking about audio these days.
knows? Yeah.
For example, if you were having a conversation with Siri, and instead of answering specific queries or saying, I'm sorry, I don't know what you mean, she says, oh, how are you doing, Paul? How's your cold that you had yesterday? In other words, if she's taken information from the way your voice sounds, if she samples your voice one day and detects that it corresponds with the voice of someone who has a throat infection, she can recommend hospitals near you, she can recommend medication, she can monitor your state, she can, through your phone, just touching your phone, she can read your temperature and say, oh, your temperature is raised now, or suggest dietary improvements. She can also connect to your fridge, and it's a smart fridge, and she can read your fridge and suggest to you that to cook a greater range of meals, you need to replenish your stock of eggs or fresh fruits or whatever. So she can integrate and help and assist you. We're talking, this is general intelligence, and she can communicate you like a real human being. So she's effectively a private secretary, and she's got access to all your information. She knows, you could ask her, for example, what your last 5 bills were, what your outgoings, what your ingoings, what's your salary, where do you work, and she can answer all those questions, and she can communicate to you in a way that convinces you that she's human, and she functions on the same level of human. She won't suddenly descend to machine level.
But
this is the Turing test.
Should be a very efficient human, right? Because you wouldn't ever have to worry about accidentally stepping on her toes or worrying.
No. She's human-like, but she's not physically manifest. She doesn't have to physically be robot. Robots are a separate issue.
Her intelligence is matched to ours, but still there is this one human, undefinable aspect that is.
Yeah, we're talking about general intelligence now. So she's not faced by one specific. She doesn't say, "Oh, I'm sorry, I don't know such and such." She can respond to a range of different challenges.
Yeah.
So she, okay. So this is the Turing test. A computer program that convinces you that this is a human you're dealing with. Now it might be just in the realm of conversation. This is also can be referred to as the singularity. So the singularity is when computer intelligence equals and then surpasses humans. And the fear expressed by authors such as Nick Bostrom is that once computers are able to replicate human intelligence and speed of thought and the range of intelligences that humans have, that it won't stop there. It will far surpass humans.
Right.
And this is
It'll
why
be a
people
springboard to
feel that
many
AI, this is why AI is being pursued by Google, by the military. You've got DARPA, which is a branch of the American military. And eventually it would very quickly transcend the intelligence of human beings and become a super intelligence.
Yeah. Here we have a definition for general and artificial general intelligence, which would be a very general mental capability that, among other things, involves the ability to reason, plan, solve problems, think abstractly, comprehend complex ideas, learn quickly, and learn from experience. And this kind of filters into a question that I wanted to ask Paul, which would be, what do you think the characteristics of intelligence are? If you were to participate in the Turing test and engage a computer in dialogue, what would you check for?
Well, it's not an easy question to answer.
I'm asking you blind. You have to prepare.
No, I haven't prepared anything. Well, I mean, you can reframe the question, and I'd have to do that several times in my own mind before I can start to formulate an answer. So you could reframe the question. For example, you're a parent of a child. What skills would you like your child to have gained as a result of 10 years of schooling, let's say? And we were talking about this earlier, and I was expressing some frustration with the education system, and I'm saying that the education system in any era you can look at is lagging behind the needs of the workplace.
It's not thinking advanced.
Yeah, so you can, so for example, and I'm not answering the question because I'm trying to buy myself some time here, right? But if you imagine that the child that you're dealing with of 8 years of age is going to have a working life from, let's say, their early 20s until possibly their early 70s, when they might wish to retire. So there's a working life there of 50 years. Well, if you split that down the middle, you're talking that the median point of their working life is in their, let's say, when they're 50, late 40s, which is 40 years on. So we've really got to look. And that could include artificial intelligence. We've got to look at what the world is going to be like, what we think the world might be like in 40 years' time. And we've got to look at a range of different occupations, desirable occupations, that cannot possibly be automated.
We have to anticipate, which occupations are going to go out the window.
Yeah, exactly. So some occupations might be automated. For example, you go to a travel agent and you say, "Oh, hello, Dima, can you suggest me a holiday? And I think I can't book you on this plane. It's going to be this cost. And is there any cheaper planes? What else can you offer me? Bank tellers and so on." There are various things you think, hang on a minute, we've already taken that out of the equation. Already now, for example, booking holidays, we've already got Expedia. You don't have to deal with anybody in a travel agency. You just simply say, "I want to go to this destination. I want to go from here, from this time. I want to go to this hotel." And you directly interface with an app which will book the tickets for you, will find the best. It'll give you a range of options. It'll give you direct flights. It'll give you indirect flights. It'll give you a range of different airlines. It'll give you a range of different prices, a range of different times, and you make the selection. Whereas previously, not too far in the distant past, you would be dealing with a person at a desk, and that person was looking at a computer screen, and you'd be going, "Oh, have you got this?" And it was a laborious process. They would say, "Yeah, exactly." So now that is taken this person out of the equation. So if we look at the world in 40 years' time, we have to presume that an immense amount of jobs, even something that's seen now as being highly skilled, like legal advice or a lawyer.
Yeah.
Lawyers get huge sums of money. Well,
Librarians.
I would love to see the back of lawyers because I think they're horrible parasites, right?
Oh, do you want to hear a lawyer joke?
Go on then.
What's the difference between a rooster and a lawyer?
What is the difference between a rooster and a lawyer?
One struts defiance and the other fucks declines.
Awesome. Right, yeah, we don't like lawyers very much, and we're glad to see the back of them. But we have to presume, don't we, Dima, that in 40 years' time, nice one,
Yeah, they'll be gone,
that lots of middle-ranking jobs, not just the menial jobs, but we've got robotics, on factory floors building cars and so on. But a lot of jobs will become automated. So what will remain for humans to do? Because we have to presume that this AI.
Explore our curiosity.
Yeah,
Build stronger
and then we
relationships with
can
others.
we can base the requirements of education on what the workplace. We should do this. I feel we should base the requirements of a rounded education on the world of work in 40 years' time, because that's the midpoint for those children that are now 10 years of age. That seems to make sense to me, and I feel that we've inherited a system that's lagging too much. So when it comes to what is intelligence, that's to me a secondary question to what do we need to know to survive, to exist, and to profitably contribute to the world. But I guess I'm ducking the question. What is intelligence? I think it's the ability to. There are many facets. Okay, there are many facets. Well, if you ask me that, I would say something like problem solving has got to be one of them. So to receive input, to interpret input in a quick way, to be able to say, okay, to recognize problems, to recognize danger, to strategize, to actually think ahead, to conceptualize things, to meta thinking, so to think about thinking. Creativity is a form of intelligence. Yeah, being creative and thinking of different ranges.
Different solutions.
I mean, Dima asked me earlier on what's the purpose of imagination, and I said, well, why did it evolve? Why did imagination evolve? What this ability we have to tell stories, to fabricate, to fictionalize, to create myth and so on. And it might have originally come out from something pragmatic, as to say we have two decisions here. What might happen if I took this decision? If I ran up to this animal and looking, cause and effect, exactly. Yeah. So and then it developed until it became something that a human could use to take advantage of another human. So they could tell a story. They could lie. Lying must have been a profound thing.
Kind of ran away with
Fabrication, lying could have been a way of gaining advantage. Like, for example, you're on your own and you walk into a hostile environment of another tribe. We're talking prehistory here. And you say that your tribe is just in the trees watching you, to give yourself some added safety so they don't attack you. Something as basic as that might have been a motivation.
What's the jump that takes us from narrow AI, which is prevalent across all of society, and none of us.
Well, we don't know. The
thing is that if you really, this is another quote that I'm reading. If you really think about it, building skyscrapers, putting humans in space, figuring out the Big Bang, these are all far easier tasks than understanding our own consciousness or how to recreate it.
Yeah, you know what? The consciousness, we make a big deal of consciousness, but I don't know if it's that relevant, because if a machine can do and act on and do stuff make decisions. Okay, let's just say it comes down to skilled decision making and nothing but that. That would be enough, wouldn't it, for any authority, any firm. Well, yes and no, but that might be enough. Powerful. Let's talk powerful. Let's talk about narrow in general. Let's talk about powerful AI. So, if a nation state had access to an AI that made high quality decisions about military deployment, about financial deployment of resources, about progressing with various pieces of research as opposed to other pieces of research, safeguards, encryption, dangers of cyber terrorism and so on. If they could make high quality decisions as opposed to medium decisions or low decisions or incorrect decisions, surely that would be a massive advantage and reason enough for AI. And that AI, whether it's conscious or not, it doesn't make any difference. It still makes decisions which bring an advantage, a strategic advantage. So that's what I would say. So we don't need to get too hung up on labels. I don't think. I think
Yeah.
we need to look at. Well, basically, I'm as a human being, I'm very curious as to how it will pan out. The estimates as to when we achieve, the big deal is if we get AI that can mimic human interaction.
I pose an abstract question.
Yeah, go on.
So earlier today we were listening to Schubert's Unfinished Symphony, right? And I was having goosebumps and I was being emotionally affected by
Were
it.
you really?
I was. So how would you feel if I put headphones on your ears and played you a beautiful classical symphony and then told you it was composed by an artificial intelligence? Would that diminish or increase your appreciation of what you're listening to in any way? Would it have an impact?
That's a really interesting question, and I'm not rushing to an answer. If you're moved, you're moved. So
Yeah.
if after the event you say, how do you feel about it now? I wouldn't be able to deny, because you could have hooked me up to a CGI, you could have connected me up to all sorts of electrodes, and you could clearly say, well, you're denying it now, but in fact you really responded, your heart rate increased, the hairs on the back of your neck rose, and every indicator that showed that you were experiencing intense emotion was aroused. You were aroused by that music, and it was purely done by an algorithm. Okay, it wouldn't make any difference. I responded to that music. I couldn't alter that fact, whether it was created. I mean, ultimately, if I listen to music, think about it. If I'm listening to Schubert's, how were you listening to Schubert's? You were listening to it through the headphones. It wasn't real. You were listening to an orchestra, but it was being replicated through, it had been, first of all, it had been recorded through a microphone. Sound waves had been converted into electrical waves. They had been recorded, they had been digitized, they had been recreated, sent through the internet, coming out of a phone. So what you were hearing, if you think about it, had become...
Yeah, that's an interesting point. You
zeros and ones at one point.
What generation was Schubert active in?
Schubert was born in 1797. And died in 1828.
So I bet if you plucked some random Joe from 1797, 97.
Yeah, when he was born.
Yeah, and asked him, who was just exiting the concert hall of a Schubert performance, amazed, stars in his eyes.
Well, no, that's when he was born. He was a baby. He wasn't producing when he was a baby, right?
In the 1800s. And
Go to
you
the
asked
1820s.
Joe in the 1820s, what did you think of that performance? He would say, wow, spectacular, amazing. I've never experienced something more profound. And then you asked him, what if you were to listen to it with headphones, just you, and the sound is perfectly preserved but isolated and only you could hear it? Would you have the same response?
Yeah, I think you'd have to say yes.
Similar kind of question.
Yeah, no, I don't think there's any issue. You respond to it and you hear it because it's so lifelike a rendition. It's a bit like you can recognize the Mona Lisa from a reproduction in a book.
Yeah.
Obviously, there's something visceral and something immediate about knowing that this is the real thing, but we're dealing with facsimiles all the time.
Yeah.
I mean, in a way, we are all facsimiles of something else. We are all
I thought it was
facsimiles, a recreation of facsimile, a fax.
Yeah.
Fax is short for
Yeah,
facsimile.
I'm just arguing
We're
about
a reproduction. We're a reproduction
Yeah,
of simile is something different.
Facsimile.
Facsimile, as in fax.
Facsimile.
Facsimile. Facsimile. We are facsimiles of a previous generation, aren't we? Our genes have recreated us from a previous genetic blueprint coming from our parents. So, no, I don't have any... I mean, if the fact remains, if they're a superior life form, the fact that they are not carbon-based, but they are silicon-based, doesn't alter the fact that they might have more profound, and they might have a more... Ultimately, we're talking about... We're still thinking, in the back of my mind, I'm still thinking, they're stupid. They're computers. Therefore they're stupid. But if we're talking about AI surpassing human, we're talking about something that can think more quickly, that can be more sensitive, that can be more appreciative of nuance.
For sure.
Every measurement of human specialness could be recreated and surpassed by these.
The only question I hold with that statement is with art, with culture. For instance, my favorite painting in the world is An Idol by Maurice William Griffenhagen. Maurice William Griffenhagen. This is the painting. It's a tanned
describe it to us, because this is a podcast.
A tanned farmer embracing...
It's a guy hugging a lady, right?
A redhead with pale...
It's just a bloke. hugging a lady.
In a field of flowers.
It's just a bloke hugging a lady.
Painted, I think, in 1862. And why this painting really strikes me is because one of my favorite writers is D.H. Lawrence, and he said that when he saw this painting, he was so moved that it made him write Woman in Love. And the fact that
Really, this is the inspiration for Women in Love.
yeah, one piece of high art can lead to another piece of art being created in its wake is something that I think is part and parcel to the human condition. I mean, I think if I was told that a computer painted this, I don't think another computer would look upon it with stars in his eyes and think I want to write a novel based on how this painting makes me feel. And that's the thing.
We can't presume that though, Dima.
We can't
can't presume that the AI will go down the route of, you know, science and maths and physics and so on. Yes, they will be able to do that, but they will also,
Maybe they'll do it
they
'cause
might
they're just
develop their own
excellent
culture.
emulators. But
They
maybe
might have
they're
their
just-
own experience of
yeah.
pleasure. Well, you know, one of the things that we might think that they might lack is an experience of nuance and humor and culture and love and caring and so on, because they're all very, very human. But hang on, why wouldn't they be replicated, especially if they were based on us initially? You know, I have to mention there's a very interesting book that I am currently reading. I'm just going to mention it briefly in passing. I'm not going to go into it in detail because you can read it for yourself. It's by Callum Chase. It's called Pandora's Box, and it explores the formation of the first AI, the first uploading of a human, and that is the basis for the first AI. And what happens? The human is uploaded after a brain scan, a very, very incredibly detailed brain scan.
Yeah.
Then that
The
human is
lovable protagonist passes away. He is uploaded.
He is uploaded, right? He tragically dies, and he is uploaded, and then proceeds to become acclimatized to his condition, which initially is it's so very black. You know, he has access to his own thoughts and his own memories. 99.9% of his memories are still intact, and he convinces his parents that it really is him. But then he starts to acclimatize to the situation and asks, in addition to audio input, which he processes very quickly and can cope with to have conversations, communicate, he asks for visual input. He's learns to deal with that, and then he starts to ask for enhancement. Yeah, he starts to ask for more and more enhancement. So, they won't give him access to the internet because they're worried about the implications that he will. Yeah. So they give him access to limited stuff. So, for example, he says, "Can I have Wikipedia?" So they give him all of downloaded Wikipedia, and he absorbs that incredibly quickly, and so on. I haven't finished the book yet, but it's fascinating. And of course, it gives humans a shot at immortality. Now, this is the intoxication of it. Is that, hey, if we can upload our minds, then we can exist theoretically for extremely long time. You know, until the sun engulfs the Earth, or we could even become a multi-planet species. You know, we could live indefinitely. And of course, 1 hour in computer terms could be equivalent to 1,000 years. We could have 1,000 lifetimes running in parallel in 10 minutes. You know, and that brings us to the argument. It just occurred to me that we are all in a simulation anyway, because the argument put forward, I think, by Nick Bostrom is that if you suppose that the rate of video games continues becoming more realistic at the rate it's become since the days of Pong, when you just had two bats knocking a ball back and forth, and now you've got very realistic, immersive 3D graphics and so on. If you imagine that goes on into the future, you have to suppose that the fantasy will become indistinguishable from reality. You have to suppose that that's going to happen eventually. So there will be more simulations than there will be base reality. So you have to then presume that there's much more chance that we are in a simulation than we are in base reality.